Hey there, welcome to Charting Toward Intimacy, where we're expanding the natural family planning conversation. I'm your host, Ellen Holloway. All right, here we are. This is we decided to throw in a bonus episode. And it's actually, we're recording
a little
this.
last minute.
Yeah, super last minute. And like, I usually don't do this. I don't record and put out an episode this soon. So it's Friday and this episode's going out on Monday. Like I usually give it a couple weeks. but I was
if we say something,
I was feeling like this was necessary.
Questionable.
Yeah. Yeah. I was feeling like this was necessary to chat about because Valentine's Day is today that you're listening to this, or maybe it's not. This is the day that this episode is going out, is Valentine's Day. And I feel like this happens so much when we're using natural family planning, is that a special occasion, like say Valentine's Day or your anniversary or vacation falls.
Or even your birthday.
Yeah. Or your birthday. Oh my gosh. You can't even wear your birthday suit now.
Not without some serious consequences.
Yeah. I mean, you can wear your birthday suit. Like,
if you want to, that's fine. That's fine.
You're just going to have to either really restrain yourself or be okay with what comes next.
Oh my god.
Which is fine too, right?
It is. That's the beauty of it. We can make these decisions. That's what we talked about, right? Sometimes you just throw the rules out the window.
Exactly.
If that's what your marriage needs, you just throw them out the window. You rely on God.
Yeah. So these special occasions, they fall during our fertile time when we're trying to avoid. And it's like, your brain and your mind is like so frustrated with it. And like, especially, I feel like Valentine's Day is one of the worst because like things like your birthday or your anniversary or vacation, like aren't coinciding with the rest of the world. Right.
Right.
But Valentine's Day, like everybody on the planet is like, oh my gosh, this is the day to be romantic with your spouse or your significant other. And like, okay, because of the work that I do on Instagram, all of my ads are either for like certain kinds of sexual products or certain kinds of clothing, or
I love that algorithm.
Really just anything in that range. Some of them I'm like, oh, this is an interesting ad. Like I'm going to look into this. Yeah. And then others I'm like, ooh, that's appropriate.
That's not within church teaching. I'm right. Sure.
So anyway, all of my ads lately have just been about like, oh, you need to like buy this, sexy lingerie to look good for your husband. Or, I did get a funny ad yesterday about meat flowers that I needed to buy my husband meat flowers. So that was an interesting one.
Meat flowers.
Yeah. It was like
so
beef jerky,
funny.
Like shaped like flowers. All right. Anyway, not the topic we're talking about today. I just wanted to mention that. It was really interesting. So the whole world is saying you need to be intimate with your spouse. And you and your spouse are like, I really, really want it, but we don't want a baby right now. For example, I am postpartum right now. I'm only 5 months postpartum. Like it's just not the time. It is not the time. And like, because postpartum is so up in the air, I don't know. I actually don't know.
Yeah.
At this point, if it will be like a green day or red day, I have no idea. We'll find out on Monday. Like that's how. Yeah. Well, actually, I mean, I guess like I could find out today or before Monday if it would definitely not be. Anyway, doesn't really matter. Postpartum protocols. Yeah. So what do we do? What do we do? This happens.
Yeah. I mean, there's always the classic board game night,
that classic.
We love to talk about.
We love board games. This is when you
board games and movie nights, those really fun things that are just
I do like board games. I don't want to.
Oh my gosh. I love board games.
Harp on board games too much because they can be really fun. But I hate when board games are like always the suggestion. It's like, oh, okay.
Exactly.
Like, it's like in your fertile time, like, oh, just go play board games. Like,
because it's an appropriate substitute for like the marital embrace. Yeah.
It is not. Board games are not a replacement for sex. Sorry. That's not how it works.
I mean, they're great. They're fun, but they're just not sex.
They're not.
Anyway, so I'll tell you, Ellen, that I sort of broke this up. What do we do? Because I'm going to be totally honest. We are really bad at answering this question. What do we do now? I mean, I'm pregnant this Valentine's Day, so we're one of the lucky ones. But
yeah, you are.
Yeah, but we have not always been, right? There's been plenty of anniversaries, Valentine's Days, weekend trips, whatever it is, where it's a no-go. It's a red day, and you're just like, well, this really stinks.
I feel like the weekend trip is like one of the worst, right? Because you're especially when you have kids, like the weekend trip when you have kids.
Yes.
And you're like, yes, like we're going to be staying in a quiet hotel room. And it's like,
yep. Yeah. It's awful. It is awful when you are fertile and trying to avoid. So because we're so bad at it, I really don't have a lot of ideas for what to do.
Let's explain what you mean by bad at it.
So maybe a little bit of background. Actually, if you listened to the episode that Ellen and I did when I just told my NFP story, you will have an idea of our relationship. My husband's love language is technically physical touch, but more specifically sex. Like that is it. He is in a very tenuous relationship with NFP. So for days like this, where it's like, I literally did some research and I was on the phone with him and I was like, hey, when we're in these like times, where we're fertile and trying to avoid on days like Valentine's Day, what are some things that we could do? And I just got an earful about how nothing is appropriate other than like, there is nothing. So it's like, okay, that's why we're bad at it. Like we don't have an answer for what else you can do. Okay. So
you can listen to this podcast together.
You can listen to this podcast, right? And if any of your husbands are out there like my husband, I mean, have them give him a call. They can rant and rave together.
Yeah.
But it was funny because as I was thinking of it, I was originally thinking before I got on the phone with Michael, I was thinking about it all. And I was like, you know what? You could do like a double date night, right? Like for Valentine's Day where you have another couple with you. And then, it's like a little less sexy when you're just trying to do something fun and celebrate with another couple, right?
That's a great idea.
Isn't it a great idea? Yeah. You've got other people there. So you can't like get all handsy and,
or even like, I almost think even better, like invite that other couple over to your house, right?
Yeah,
like
exactly.
Like, don't even go out
with another couple. And then it's not just this like, oh, it's you and me playing a board game because we can't have sex. It's like, let's have friends over and do something fun, celebrate.
I love
like
that because, and again, I think the most important thing here is anything we're going to say on this podcast is not a replacement for sex. Correct. Because there is nothing that can replace sex.
Nothing.
But these are just some ideas that you could think about. And that might be something that would be fun, that can be distracting in a good way.
Yeah, exactly. So I basically was thinking of these things like, oh, okay, these things sound great. And these are like fun, like different things that you could do, different ways to celebrate Valentine's Day when you're trying to avoid, right? Mm-hmm. And then I got on the phone with Michael and I was like, okay, here's what you should do if you have a husband like mine.
Yes.
So I'll go into the practical stuff first that I came up with, right? So that was the first one. Invite another couple over, do a double date night. Could be a ton of fun, just and celebrate that like filial love, right? That love of that friendship sort of love. The other things I was thinking is that and I guess along the same line is, who says like Valentine's Day is a day to celebrate love, right? Who says it has to be romantic love if we're in this period? Why don't we use Valentine's Day as an opportunity to love others? So I remember one anniversary and it was a total like not intentional thing at all. And I don't even remember if we were like in a fertile phase or not. I know we were trying to avoid at that time, but I don't remember what phase of my cycle.
Sure, yeah.
But we ended up going out for an anniversary dinner and inviting like our priest friend who was like texting us that day, and we were like, why don't we get him out to dinner? You know, like
such a great idea.
You know, so use the opportunity to reach out to a friend that maybe doesn't have a Valentine, right? Or doesn't have anything special to do that day, right? That might be feeling kind of on the outs, which could be a priest friend, by the way. I know I have priest friends who do feel that loneliness on days like Valentine's Day, who are super happy and solid and, you know, love their vocation, but it's a very natural thing to still feel that kind of loneliness on days that are intentionally celebrating romantic love. So yeah, invite one of them out, you know, go out to dinner with them, sort of along the same lines of, yes, you're not alone then, you know, like you're not in this situation where you can get all handsy and you're tempted to, you're with somebody else, you know, so that would be really awkward if you did that.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. The other idea I thought was if you have kids, take your kids out on a date.
Yeah.
It's like, you know, you split up, you know, mom takes your son out and then dad takes the daughter out, or, you know, or you just take them out together, whatever it is.
Or like just do like a big family movie night and like everybody cuddles together. I saw this hilarious thing on the, like, you know, the NFP Catholic style Facebook group.
Yes. I do.
And like somebody posted and was like, seriously, like, what do you all do when like you and your husband both really, really want it, but like it's just not a good time to have a baby? And like there was this hilarious comment and they were like, put a toddler between you two.
Sleep with a baby in your bed. Co-sleep that night.
Grab the kid, stick him in between you two. Nothing's going to happen then.
And here's the hilarious thing. Like if I did that with my kids, if I was like one of them, hey, come on, you get to sleep with us. Like they would be over the moon.
Right?
I mean, they end up like coming in, you know, there's always somebody coming in. Although last night, 2 nights in a row, we were baby free. It was amazing.
Oh my gosh. Congrats.
Thank you. It was great. But oh my gosh, if I told my 8-year-old, hey, come on, you get to sleep with us tonight. I mean, that would probably be her love language. Like I get to sleep with mom and dad tonight. That's amazing. You know? So yeah, absolutely. Do something to show your kids you love. Focus the day on your kids, you know, showing them that you love them versus just your spouse. The other thing which I thought of and I was like, oh my gosh, I'm totally doing this on Monday, even though I don't have to abstain, is sit down with your kids. We talked about love languages in our OG episode. Sit down with your kids and have them take the love language quiz for kids.
Great. Yeah.
Right? Like really just take them all. I mean, my kids love, they do like the Harry Potter quiz. They did that, like, you know, taking those like online quizzes where it's like, oh, you get assigned something.
Yeah. They like quizzes.
They love that. They love it. You know, so doing that, you get to learn about your kids. They learn a little bit about themselves, and all just about how they receive and feel loved the best, you know, just, yeah, I don't know. So really, like, if you're like just two people trying to figure out something to do other than have sex on a day like this, I don't have much for you, except to just take the pressure off of yourselves and the focus of love on yourselves and reach out to see, maybe we can use this day to love others in other ways.
I love that idea. Just like turning it outward. And
exactly.
I think that is a great, like, holy distraction, like loving other people outside of your relationship. I think that's fabulous. Yeah. I love the idea of like showering some love on your kids, or specifically like reaching out to someone who feels kind of alienated or isolated on a day like Valentine's Day. Or like, I honestly, I love that you, on like an anniversary, you invited a priest friend out to dinner. Like, how great. Like,
we joked about it for a long time afterwards. We were like, how did you just crash our anniversary dinner? It was like, we did it. Like, we were like talking to him earlier in the day. It was just like, you know what? Like, it's been a while. Let's like get him out. We're going out anyway. It's like, it's our anniversary. It's like, it's fine. It's not a big deal.
You know, I remember when I was a kid, well, I was like, probably like a preteen-ish age, and it was Valentine's Day, and my parents like invited me to watch a movie with them. And I was like, but it's Valentine's Day. Like, shouldn't shouldn't this like just be about you guys? And they were like, well, no, because like there's so much more to like our love as mom and dad than just the two of us. Like, you know, this is you're like a part of our family, you're a part of our love. And that was a really impactful thing for me to hear as a preteen, that like it isn't just about, you know, mom and dad. It, you know, I'm involved in this. I am important in this family.
Right.
I'm important in this love.
Yeah,
and yes, of
beautiful.
course, like your marriage is very important, and like you should love your spouse above your children. Like that's actually what we're called to.
Absolutely.
But it's also really good to tell your children that you love them.
Yeah. And, you know, it doesn't necessarily have to be every Valentine's Day that you do that. You know, maybe
Right.
just reserve it for the Valentine's Day where you are trying to avoid and you find yourself fertile, you know? But I think that it's a really, like you said, it does send such a great message to your kids because they are the fruit of your love, you know?
Right.
So yeah, that's a cool thing. Your parents did that. I love that.
Yeah. And well, and it's so funny because like my parents didn't even practice NFP. Like, I don't know why they invited me. I mean, well,
didn't feel like
I know
it that
why
night.
they invited me, because they wanted to invite me. Right. Like, but like, I know it wasn't because of this circumstance.
Right. Sure.
You know, and I think something that's really important on this topic is sit down with your spouse and say, you know what, this sucks.
I literally had this in my notes.
Do you really?
Yeah. This is all part of if your husband's like mine, right?
Okay, let's jump into that category then.
All right, here we go. If your husband's like mine, here's what you do. You tell him it sucks. You recognize that it sucks. You just like be in that with him. You be experiencing the pain of it, the sacrifice of it together. Because like we're talking about, like, what else can you do? And this was my husband's main point, was like, nothing else matters. Like there is no substitute for having sex with your spouse, for renewing your marriage vows. Like you can't substitute it. Right. So, and I think, again, if your husband's like mine, to go to him and say, hey, we can't celebrate in the way we'd like tonight. What else can we do? They're just going to be like, there's literally nothing.
Yeah.
Like they're not going to give you ideas. They're not going to want other ideas. What they're going to want is for you to feel that pain with them. And that is what my husband wants. He wants me to feel the loss. He wants me to feel the pain. He wants me to be in it with him, not just be like, oh, miss, positivity. Oh, it's all right. We could do other things. Like, no, there's literally nothing
make it
else.
Worse. Like,
right. Exactly. It's like, to him, that's just going to like enrage him. Right. Like the fact that you think we could do other things that would be a sufficient replacement for this is infuriating.
Yeah.
Because there's not, he wants you to be, mine wants me to be in that with him. And like, that is good. Like that can be a point of connection. Just being like, yeah, this sucks together. That's all right. Like we're here, we're in it, we're suffering through it together.
Right.
The other thing that is huge for us is if you are likely to be in in your fertile phase and trying to avoid, to let him know that as soon as possible.
Oh, yes. Oh my gosh.
Yeah. Don't
Maybe we should just like put this episode out today instead of like.
That's true. That's true. This isn't going to help you on Valentine's Day. But yeah, in the future for other events and things that might come up, don't wait until the day of to drop the bomb on him that this is not, it's a red light day and it's not going to happen. Because again, if he's like my husband, that's going to be too late. It's going to be, I wish I knew ahead of time so that I could really have prepared mentally for this. But instead, he spent days prior building this up in his head, really excited for it. And even if you're not sure, but there's a possibility, just prep him for that, being like, hey, not 100% yet, but I just want to prepare you now. There is a good chance I might be in my fertile phase, so.
Right. Because depending on your method, you may or may not like know a couple days ahead of time. And also like, depending on what rules you're using,
right.
That kind of thing, it might be the kind of thing where you do find out that day, or like
Right.
if you're postpartum.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, you're in a tough spot with that one.
But like, again, I think that is so key is tell him as soon as you know.
Yes, exactly. I might have a baby come in and interrupt us in a second.
That's okay.
But sorry in advance, everybody. The last thing I was going to say is that, and we have done this in the past, not necessarily, I'm sure we have at some point for like TTA reasons, but mostly for financial reasons, cancel Valentine's Day and reschedule it for a week later.
Oh, fabulous. Yep.
Who says it has to be on February 14th, right? I mean, and it is, we like looked around, those menus for Valentine's Day are expensive.
They are. And the same restaurant a week later will serve you something very similar.
Exactly.
And let's talk about half price candy too. Like, you go buy it the next day. Buy candy. I told my husband, because I'm like doing a specific like eating plan. I'm like on this like eating fitness plan right now, and it ends on February 20th. And he was just like, oh, like I'll get you something for Valentine's Day, but I'll just like put it in the counter. So I was like, dude, buy it after Valentine's Day.
Yeah, exactly. It's
if
like,
I'm not going to eat it until after Valentine's Day, like buy it afterwards.
Yeah, it's just all capitalism, you know? So it's fine. I mean, like, by all means, have a day to celebrate love. Like, I love that.
Yeah.
But why does it? Yeah, everything's so expensive. Just like push it off a week, you know? I mean, and again, we've done that like most years. We've kind of been like, let's not do it this weekend. Let's go next weekend and just, have it be our Valentine's Day.
Right.
But I mean, yeah, if you're trying to avoid, even better, it's like, all right, the rest of the world can celebrate today. We'll celebrate it in a week, and it's going to be way better than if we celebrated it today.
Yeah. I agree.
I mean, yeah, you don't have to follow the rules all the time, just
right. Like,
take it up a little bit.
Let's take like any other holiday, like your anniversary. You could celebrate it a week later. You could celebrate it a week earlier. Like,
yep. Mm-hmm.
That's totally fine.
Exactly. It doesn't have to be on that. I mean, do something special if you can, especially if you're talking about an anniversary or a birthday or something like that. But if you're looking for like a real, like all out celebration and you can't, just push it off a little bit.
Yeah.
No big deal.
And let's just note on like anniversary specifically, every time that you and your spouse come together, you are celebrating your anniversary.
Touche.
So
very true.
So keep that one in mind.
True. Yeah, exactly.
Oh man.
So yeah, that's kind of what I suggested. So if people were, you know what I forgot to mention? If you are somebody whose husband is not like mine, and you're both awesome with just taking the opportunity to build like non-sexual intimacy on this day, first of all, power to you.
That's fantastic.
I'm a little bit jealous.
That's not either of our cases. Our husbands are both physical touch people.
Exactly. But if you are, I recently found, and we haven't used it yet, but I plan to. My husband doesn't know this yet, but there is an app called, what's it called? Gottman Card Deck, which is out of the Gottman Institute, who it's Dr. John Gottman, who's like the world-renowned marriage therapist. He's got a whole card deck app, so it's free, and you can browse all of these cards with like these different prompts for questions just to build intimacy and just to kind of get to know each other. And there's all different, I just downloaded it. There's all different categories. There's one called love maps. There's open-ended questions, rituals of connection, opportunities, so things you guys can actually do, date questions, sex questions.
Probably skip the sex questions.
Yeah, I don't do that one like on, this day particularly what we're talking about, but
like talk about those, but like probably not on a day you're trying to.
Right. Yeah, there's 14 categories though of questions, on awesome. this app. So, don't do the sex ones, but whatever else, like just take the opportunity to maybe sit down for the night, and just go through questions, talk about your future, talk about where you want to be in however many years, talk about things you might want to do to your house. all different things that you can really just build that intimacy and connect and kind of grow together.
Yeah.
And learn a little bit about each other without, without being able to consummate at the end of the night.
Yeah. I love that.
Yeah.
See, and like my love language, which is quality time, would like totally love that.
Right? Exactly. That's what I'm saying. Yeah.
I would be
I don't
all
know
about that conversation.
I would too. And, I think once we're postpartum and kind of dealing with this stuff, like this could come in handy, as something. Again, nothing's going to replace it. And always mention that to your husband. Make sure, put that out there. I know that nothing's going to replace it. But like, it would be fun tonight to just kind of sit down and, do this.
That is so good. What you just said is actually voicing that to your spouse. I know that this suggestion is not going to replace sex. I would like to do this to, increase our intimacy or get closer to you or get to know you better. Or I would like to do this to have a little bit of fun tonight, voice that you realize you are not trying to replace sex.
Right.
And I think that affirmation, will really help. And again, like what we were saying before, like sit with the suck.
Yeah, exactly. Like sit with it, be in
sit
it
with
together
that for a little while and be okay with that. Maybe like before, as you're getting dinner ready or whatever. And you're like, you know what? I'm sorry. This sucks. Like and there's nothing that we can do about it.
Yeah.
And then when you're having dinner, then discuss, hey, you know what? I know this isn't going to replace sex. And I know that ideally we'd be doing something else tonight, but I would like to try doing this because I think it would be something fun to do.
Yeah, exactly.
Done. There's your conversation. That's what you can implement today. I know a lot of the things that we said, I'm realizing, man, we should have recorded this episode and put it out a week ago. Like a lot of things we said, like, aren't necessarily like feasible to do. And like, maybe you're listening to this since like 4 p.m. and you're like, I am on my way home from work right now. Like I can't invite my priest friend over for dinner. Well, actually you probably could send him a text. Like
that's true.
Throw that out there.
True.
And and you're like, oh, well, I couldn't like go on a double date now. Like our friends are busy. They already have plans, blah, blah, blah. But this conversation that I just mentioned, that is something you can implement tonight easily.
Mm-hmm. And again, the Gottman card deck. So Gottman is Gottman. Maybe Ellen can link it in the
I'll put the link in the show notes for sure.
Gottman card deck. It's a free app. You can just download it in a couple seconds and pull that out tonight instead. If your husband's open to it, or just sit in the suck, and that's fine too. Cancel Valentine's Day. It's next week instead. That's okay. But I think it's really important above all that where your spouse is on this, how they feel about it, and you're just in it together.
Yeah.
Verbalizing it, putting it out there, recognizing that everything you guys do is together, so if you just need to wallow in it, just wallow in it and it's fine. And then have Valentine's Day next week.
Yeah, exactly. Perfect. Oh, I love that. Do you have anything else you want to add before?
No, I think I checked off everything on my list. Those were all my maybe helpful, maybe not ideas.
Yeah. If you're listening to this and you're like, oh, seriously, all of those sound terrible, then I'm sorry.
Sorry guys. We tried.
We tried.
Hard.
This was, we wanted to speak into this situation because I'm likely going to be facing it. Let's be honest.
Exactly. I know. I'm sorry. I feel bad. We've all been there. We'll all be there again.
Right. And you know what? That's a really good thing I think we should end on, is just recognizing that like you are not alone in this struggle. Like we have all been there on some sort of a special occasion that we've had to abstain, or a season of just a lot of abstinence.
Yeah.
Postpartum. Or can you tell I'm a little salty?
Yeah. No. It's fine. You're doing great.
It's been a rough couple of weeks. But we have all been there, and there are people who are suffering with you. And like, honestly, okay, maybe you are listening to this at 4 p.m. Like, text that other NFP couple friend that you know.
Yeah.
And be like, hey, I don't know where you're at in your cycle. This is where I'm at. Do you want to come over to dinner? If you don't, I understand. I know where you're at in your cycle. Right? Like,
that's fine too.
That's fine too. Right? Like, celebrate them.
Yeah, no, I think that's exactly right. It is. And yeah, it is. It's a poopy situation that none of us like to be in, but we've all been in it. We'll all be in it again. So take comfort in that if you can. And yeah, I think just really, being able to voice that to your spouse, to sit in it together, and then to use the day, if you can, to love other people instead, to reach out in ways that you normally wouldn't.
Maybe switch instead to in addition to. Because you still love your husband.
Of course.
You still love your spouse.
Of course. You're not going to experience the culmination of that love, but that's okay. Just use the opportunity to say, hey, who else can we love today? In a meaningful way, and
love
reach
it.
out, your kids, your friends, whoever. Yeah. And you know what? Happy Valentine's Day, everyone.
Happy
it's gonna be great,
Valentine's
no matter what. Even if you're sitting in the suck, it can be great.
It can be great. All right. Be sure to follow Charting Toward Intimacy on Instagram. I'm going to put the link to that app in the show notes, so you can download that. Obviously, if you're driving on your way home from work right now, don't download it. But when you get home. Oh, man. Until next time, everybody.
See you guys.